development yet on OpenAI. I look forward to that, and Minister Sangri, we will be following up. I sat with the families of Tumbler Ridge, met with the first responders, saw the horror of what happened and the pain that's been caused. Obviously, anything that anyone could have done to prevent that tragedy or future tragedies must be done. We will fully explore it to the full lengths of law. We'll be very transparent about that process.
Monsieur Carney, faites-vous confiance à votre ministre de l'immigration?
Je suis béni d'un cabinet exceptionnel. Alors, I'm blessed with an exceptional cabinet, and we're working forward for Canadians.
You're in sectoral tariffs, Prime Minister.
I want to hear you talk about ChatGPT. Sure. What you told them, and what are you guys going to do about that?
So first, I was glad to be able to join my colleagues, Minister Solomon Miller and Ananda Sangri, to meet with senior officials from OpenAI. I think it's just important in this conversation we center what's really important. There are families who've lost children that they will never get back. And the test that we have to ask ourselves about is, can we honestly look somebody in the face who's been through a tragedy like this and tell them with certainty that we're doing absolutely everything we can to make sure that this kind of a tragedy will never happen again.
Do you trust companies like OpenAI to keep Canadians safe, given what you learned in this meeting about their internal assessments?
Look, to me, trust is going to be earned. We need to actually see what changes are going to be forthcoming, both from the company's point of view, but we also need to identify the best path forward. The message that we delivered in no uncertain terms was that we have an expectation that there are going to be changes implemented, and if they're not forthcoming very quickly, the government's going to be making changes. We have an opportunity. Sorry, I just couldn't hear. Look, I never think we should just automatically put our trust in any particular company from any particular jurisdiction. We need to trust their behavior, not their reputation. The reality here is we need to see concrete measures that are going to be put forward. Specifically, there are challenges that were referred to in Minister Solomon's statement after the meeting last night around the assessment of credibility and imminence when a threat is in fact detected. We need to ask ourselves, is that the right test, and why was there a failure to properly administer that assessment in this instance to make sure that we can have faith that these kinds of things are not going to happen.
Where were they lacking? Where would they fall short in your perspective? Is it that their policies weren't followed, or that their policies themselves fell short?
So first, I think it's important that there is an investigation that's going off, and we don't want to interfere with the ability of the RCMP to fully and to its completion understand what's taken place. There were certain systemic issues that were raised that I think do need to be addressed, despite the fact that over the last number of years the technology's been advancing rapidly. Even when the technology does its job, there can still be a human failure. That failure can be a result of having the wrong test in place, and it can be a result of not properly making an assessment under the test that you use. Specifically, and Minister Solomon's statement alluded to this, there are issues around the assessment on credibility of a threat and the imminence of a threat that, in my view, if properly administered, could prevent tragedies on a go-forward basis.
But to what extent those assessments apply also to the gun laws? Because we've learned that the guns in that house have been taken away because of mental health issues, and they were given back. Isn't that part of the problem also, and should we not review those regulations?
So the facts of a given set of circumstances are going to be highly contextual and very specific. Just to respect the ability of law enforcement to fully investigate, I don't want to start speculating about what details may emerge. But in general terms, we need to be able to ensure, regardless of the nature of the threat, if it's serious, if it has the potential to be carried out, that we give law enforcement the tools to prevent that tragedy in the first place. This is obviously going to engage conversations in some instances about firearms, but it would be a much broader conversation than that alone.
But
So it's clear that we want to be doing more to protect Canadians from a government point of view. That's why we had 4 Canadian ministers meet with officials to identify both what a private sector company might do, but also what legal changes may be put in place to better protect Canadians. Minister Solomon's right here. I'd allow him to.
Online harms bill. We are about their escalation thresholds and their safety protocols, but we expected them to come with some concrete solutions so Canadians can feel comfortable that this kind of tragedy may be avoided. We didn't get into the details of the case for obvious reasons. And we are disappointed that they did not provide any concrete proposals. Now, they did say after we expressed our disappointment, they will come back. Fraser.
Thank you so much, early morning. Just said if they can't come with concrete proposals to consider legislation, they're not the only company with this kind of technology. So at what point do you feel like legislation is required?
Well, look, we got a suite of legislation on AI that we're considering. We've already got C-16 on the non-consensual sharing of sexualized imagery that the Justice Minister's got. I've got the legislation on PIPEDA, updating our legislation. Then Mark Miller is working on online harms. But look, we told this company we want to see some hard proposals, some concrete action. All options are on the table in terms of how we may approach this from the online harms and from our suite of measures, and we're very open to that.
What proposals, though, are you looking for? Like, can you give more specifics?
We are looking for proposals that have to do with the escalation thresholds as to when they would escalate, at what point does both their human and their technical protocols kick in to they report to the police? How do they do that with law enforcement? They're sifting through billions and billions of pieces of data, and we want to see what their thresholds are. I'm right here.
Did a failure occur in this case, in the Tumbler Ridge case? Did OpenAI fail?
Of course a failure occurred here. I mean, look what happened. I mean, this is a horrific tragedy. I'm not going to comment on the details of the case and culpabilities. That is not for me to decide. But I will say this. We want to ensure that this does not happen again. OpenAI came up here when we summoned them to talk about their safety thresholds and their protocols. We've seen the reports. We were really disturbed by the reports that there might have been an opportunity to escalate this to law enforcement further. And we want to make sure if any company has that opportunity, they would escalate further.
Precisely. Do you want to look some? Do you want to have some regulations for all companies and not just OpenAI? I mean, there are.
Yeah, of course. I mean, look, this would have broad application to the technology, but we specifically, in this case, wanted answers on their safety protocols. I will meet with my colleagues after last night's meeting. We are looking at this, and as I say, all options are on the table. Well, we are absolutely looking at what the thresholds are and making sure that there would be a broader application. But again, in the wake of the horrific tragedy at Tumbler Ridge, and again, like, our job is not to politicize a horrible tragedy. I mean, we got to be careful here. There's an ongoing criminal case, and this is, this is a massacre. But that's why. But that is, well, we are look. We got back on Sunday from India. We had brought 5 of them, flew up from the United States on Tuesday. We are moving very expeditiously. We have told them all options are on the table, and we'll get back to you with what their concrete proposals will look like.
Why are you waiting? Why are you waiting for
not a message for Tumbler Ridge, just on a human level. What does that say to you?
I didn't hear your question.
Mr. Parker last night was asked about, does he have anything to say to the people of Tumbler Ridge? He stayed silent. What do you make of that?
I mean, look, I'm not here to comment on them, their views. I will tell you this. They came up here. We asked them, get up here and give us an explanation. They came up here on Tuesday. We are looking forward to some concrete proposals. We are disappointed that by the time they came up here, they did not have something more concrete to offer, but we'll see very shortly what they have.
Did they acknowledge a failure occurred? Did they acknowledge a failure occurred?
$8 million for Cuba.
Bonjour tout le monde. Hi, everybody. This morning, Secretary Sarai and I would like to make an announcement about Canadian government aid for Cuba, focusing on humanitarian aid in particular. I will pass the mic over to Secretary Sarai to provide the details.
As you all know, the humanitarian situation in Cuba is becoming quite grave and quite serious, and so Canada is stepping up as we've had a very trusted relationship with the people of Cuba. We're accelerating $8 million in funding to help go directly to the people most in need, and this is going through our trusted partners, the World Food Program, as well as UNICEF, and we're hoping that it gets to those those most in need. And after that, we'll be assessing the situation as it needs be, and we can adjust our program accordingly.
Why are you sending fuel? Why aren't you sending fuel?
En français, if I could, please. C'est important de se souvenir que le Canada est un pays qui pense que l'aide humanitaire est très important. Donc aujourd'hui, on annonce que nous allons donner 8 millions de dollars vers les organisations internationales pour aider la situation au Cuba. Donc, ça, c'est très important parce que il y a des gens là sur le terrain qui ont besoin de notre aide et nous sommes là pour eux. Maintenant, nous pouvons répondre à vos questions.
Why are you sending fuel?
$8 million seems a little timid. Are you trying to placate the U.S.?
Look, we already have a program there. We've been supporting the people of Cuba already, and this is an accelerated program to give them a bigger boost in this certain time. And if more needs to be delivered, or if there's a humanitarian call from the UN or other organizations, we'll assess that.
Why are you sending fuel? Why are you sending fuel?
If I could just follow up to Rafi's question, our focus is on Cuba, but also greater regional stability overall. And as you have seen, we have put forward aid of various forms to Haiti, for example, in recent months. This is work that we are continuing to do. This is not always the final moment of humanitarian aid, because if you step back, you know and you see that Canada is a country that focuses on humanitarian situation and how we can do more for people in need. At this time, the announcement is $8 million towards international organizations that can support the people of Cuba at this time with aid and other supplies, including food. We will always be looking to do more when humanitarian situations call for it.
What conversations have you had with the U.S. about providing or not providing fuel to Cuba?
I have not discussed Canadian aid intentions with Secretary Rubio or the United States. This is Canadian foreign policy, and we are focused, as I just said, on the humanitarian situation.
Why not fuel?
Excuse me, I've taken 3 questions in English. I'm going to take a question in French right now.
Qu'est-ce que vous pensez du travail de votre collègue Léna Diable? Qu'est-ce que vous pensez du travail de votre collègue Léna Diable?
Je sais qu'elle travaille très fort
et
aussi elle a l'expérience pendant son temps dans le gouvernement de Nouvelle-Écosse, et aussi elle travaille très fort sur le dossier nécessaire. Donc merci beaucoup.
Greer apparently said that Canada needs to be prepared for permanent tariffs. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I leave those questions to Minister LeBlanc, who has sole carriage over the Canada-U.S. trade relationship, as you know. I will say that my focus will continue to be on supporting the government's mission and building a strong domestic economy, diversifying our trade relationships. That is one of the reasons why we are traveling to India in the coming days, tomorrow in fact, to continue the trade diversification and the building of our domestic economy, which is a very important part of our foreign policy as we double non-U.S. trade in the next 10 years. Thank you very much. Premièrement, on doit avoir un focus sur la situation humanitaire sur le terrain. Et maintenant, il y a des gens qui ont besoin de l'aide humanitaire, et nous avons décidé et ça c'est le travail de mon collègue ici, le secrétaire Sarai, sur la situation humanitaire, et ça veut dire la nourriture et les médicaments essentiels. Donc, On va continuer de regarder, d'avoir un focus sur la situation sur le terrain, sur la stabilité régionale et on va continuer de chercher les moyens et les voies pour notre aide là dans la région. Merci beaucoup.
Tariffs as a way to replace the income tax system and here to stay. What does that bode for Canada-U.S. trade talks? Is there no way around tariffs now?
Well, they said we have an open line of communication with the American side. You know, we have many points of contact. I think the underlying principle is that they understand that trade between our two nations make the United States and Canada more competitive. I mean, he talks about the golden age. You know, I was at the inauguration when he was inaugurated in the Capitol, and when he said that, people were looking at the statement of the president and seeing how we're going to be reforming the international trade agenda. I must say, Canada, if you look at the data, is still the country which is paying the lowest price to enter the U.S. market. We're 4.9% now on an average basis. More than 85% of the goods are covered under the exception. So Canada, in a sense, is in a good position. Now, that being said, if you're in the steel sector, if you're in the aluminum sector, the softwood lumber sector, that's very different, you know, because obviously the sectors which are most affected in the regions feel it in a very different way.
Specifically, though, he seems to be planning to anchor all his economic agenda on tariffs and to replace income taxes as the way to generate revenue. So how do you get around that?
Not for me to comment on that, but what I would say, I think it is pretty well understood now in the world that the view of the American administration is that there'll be a price to access the American market. I think, you know, every country of the world that I know of is paying a price. What I'm saying is that Canada is paying the lowest price.
And what price are we prepared to pay?
Well, listen, we're having.
How low are you demanding?
Well, I would say that we have the lowest now. We're below 5%. But that being said, we need to go back to what the Prime Minister has said. Let's focus on what we can control. Let's build in our country at a sense of urgency that we've seen at speed and scale. One Canadian economy, by Canadian policy. You know, there's so much we can do for ourselves that's what we're focusing on, and we'll continue to talk to our partners.
But Jameson Greer is saying this is all about onshoring manufacturing, steel, aluminum. So what does that mean for those sectors?
Well, no surprise. I
know it's no surprise, but are you admitting that there will have to be something there?
Well, listen, I think they understand that the industries on both sides of the border are making North America more competitive. And I saw Jameson just at Davos recently. You know, there's a lot of open communication, but there's a fact that remains is that if you want to have North America competitive, we need to work together, and that's why CUSMA has been so.
But they seem like it's
successful.
a zero-sum game. It's all of the manufacturing on their side of the border.
What they've changed, and I can tell you, that's also a discussion we have at the G7, is that there is an understanding now that the American trade policy is that there's a price to access the American market. That's why the Prime Minister and I and colleagues, we're going in India, we're going in Australia, Prime Minister is going in Japan. We need to diversify at the speed that we have not done before and build our country, be more resilient, make these projects go in Canada, because that's going to make us more resilient, and at the same time, you know, we'll find a way with
Quelle est votre réponse au discours sur l'état de l'Union?
Ben, écoutez, c'est un exercice, comme on sait, qui est régulier dans l'agenda, j'allais dire, parlementaire américain. Pas nécessairement de surprise. Ça me dit encore que nous, il faut faire ce qu'on fait, c'est-à-dire renforcer l'économie canadienne, faire des grands projets chez nous, diversifier notre économie, avoir une économie canadienne. Vous savez, on a dit, il y avait une étude récente du Fonds monétaire international qui disait si on enlevait toutes les barrières tarifaires, on aurait 210 milliards de plus dans le PIB national. Donc, écoutez, pas de surprise, mais certainement un regain d'énergie, je dirais, chez nous, à bâtir l'économie canadienne.
Are you still trying to get sectoral tariffs lifted? Can you give more? You said that tariffs are here to stay and replace the income tax system. Does that bode badly for Canada's prospects of getting tariffs dropped?
So, of course, when it comes to our trade with the U.S., the minister in charge of the file is working night and day on it.
But he doesn't talk to us, so I'm asking you.
So you should ask him again.
Well, we've
Well,
asked him multiple times.
you have sectors that are directly affected by tariffs. You're responsible for those workers and businesses. That's why I'm
Okay,
asking
guys,
you.
what I can say about what is our relationship with the U.S. is obviously we'll continue to engage. We take good note of what President Trump mentioned last night. I've been engaged also with many companies, including obviously in the auto sector, and we now have a really good plan for dealing with auto, dealing with steel, dealing with aluminum, and also we have a new defense industrial strategy that will be able to create good jobs, particularly in the sectors that are impacted by the tariffs, and we see this strategy as an economic stimulus at a time of a trade war.
As well, what are your concerns about OpenAI in terms of Tumbler Ridge and what they did or didn't say to Canadians?
So AI is under the purview of my colleague, the minister in charge of AI, and therefore he's been very clear on the position regarding what should be done by the team at OpenAI.
Jamie Greer continues to say that this is about onshoring manufacturing. How concerned are you about those industries that this is not going to ever come back to a place where we have no tariffs on steel, aluminum, copper, and lumber?
So we'll continue to fight for Canada's interests and the workers in the sectors. That being said, we've been clear is that we've been over-dependent on the U.S. and we need to make sure that we build one strong Canadian economy. And that is exactly why right now our plan is working. We're helping our steel plants to pivot to support our needs here in Canada. We are working also to open new markets, and that's why our aluminum plants are now exporting to Europe more than ever. And that is also why we're finding new partners, and I wanted to talk to you about why I was in the House of Commons on Monday and Tuesday, because I was in Germany. And I just signed a new auto manufacturing MOU with the German government, which is important at a time where we're trying to attract new investments. I also went to Volkswagen and held conversations with the CEO of Volkswagen to attract investments here in Canada. So we know that some of the D3 have been, so basically GM and Stellantis have been cutting jobs here in Canada. Well, we will look towards Koreans, we will look towards Germans, and we'll look towards Chinese investments because we believe in our auto workers. Wait, I will say it in French. Okay. Donc, je reviens tout juste de l'Allemagne où j'ai eu l'occasion de signer une entente avec le gouvernement allemand pour le secteur de l'automobile. Nous savons qu'il y a eu des coupures de la part de GM et Stellantis. Alors, l'objectif, c'est d'attirer de nouveaux investissements de la part tantôt des Allemands ou des Coréens ou des Chinois. J'ai eu l'occasion de rencontrer aussi le PDG de Volkswagen. Mon objectif est d'attirer des investissements de la compagnie au Canada.
Une question en français. Qu'est-ce que vous pensez du travail de Léna Diab? Est-ce que vous pensez que c'est une bonne ministre? Certains de vos collègues disent qu'elle ne maîtrise pas ses dossiers.
Écoutez, moi, j'ai toujours beaucoup de respect pour mes collègues et surtout de solidarité pour mes collègues au sein du cabinet des ministres.
Le représentant sur l'indépendance du Québec qui attend après l'ère Trump ou le mandat de Trump, vous en pensez quoi de cette proposition de votre ancien ami Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon?
Bien là, vous posez une question à une membre du cabinet du Parti libéral du Canada. Bien entendu, je suis fédéraliste et je pense qu'un référendum pour le Québec serait une mauvaise idée, comme la plupart des Québécois.
Some of her colleagues.
That's for other people to answer, not me.
Yeah, but do you've seen her at the caucus meeting, some colleagues have been able to ask her questions. Do you think she provides clear answers?
I won't speak to caucus. I would just say I have had one instance where they should have passed an amendment to support families who adopt abroad. I don't think it was handled particularly well, but in terms of the minister herself specifically, I'll let other people comment.
Okay, but would you say she's a good minister?
I've had frustrations with that one file, but again, these decisions are for the Prime Minister.
What do you think of the Ontario Liberals changing the rules to allow non-permanent citizens to vote in the leadership race? Do you think that was a missed opportunity considering the Federal Party?
Well, I think all parties should better follow the advice of the Elections Commission, that Foreign Interference Commission. Yeah.
What do you think of the State of the Union speech with
I have not gone through detail. I have to admit, at this point in my life, I find it hard to sit through that much Donald Trump. But I'll get back to you on that.
The trade representative told CBC News that Canada should expect the level of baseline tariffs going forward.
I mean, I trust in our trade representative. I will also say that we've seen volatility where you wake up one Monday and it's a certain percentage, you wake up another Monday, it's a different percentage, and so it's hard to know with the president, but I trust in our representation.
Are you concerned about the Liberal government passing all these bills without recorded vote of division?
If there's support in the House, sufficient support where you have a vast majority of MPs that are supporting the legislation and you don't have enough opposition to call for a recorded vote, I mean, that's democracy at work, I think.
Okay, so you're not worried about like concerns of bills being rushed through Parliament at all?
That's a different question.
Okay.
Well, no, you asked me if there's a vote. Division is a vote. There's all kinds of ways of voting.
A formal vote then?
Well, I don't know. We'll have to see.
Wait, you haven't. Why haven't you decided yet?
Well, again, things happen in the House of Commons. You'll be able to watch those just like I will.
Est-ce que vous pensez que Léna Diab est une bonne ministre?
Pardon?
Est-ce que vous pensez que Léna Diab est une bonne ministre? Il y a certains de ses collègues qui disent qu'elle ne maîtrise pas ses dossiers. Est-ce que c'est votre constat aussi?
Léna Diab est une excellente collègue. C'est la fille d'immigrants. C'est quelqu'un qui a servi son pays au niveau provincial, au niveau fédéral. Et les résultats sont là. Hein? On a vu une baisse dans les demandeurs d'asile, une baisse dans les citoyens, c'est-à-dire les gens qui sont temporairement au Canada. Donc, Léna Diab est la ministre responsable de tout ça.
Est-ce qu'elle est une bonne ministre? L'Office des transports du Canada devrait mettre immédiatement en œuvre le frais de 790 $ pour les compagnies aériennes, pour les plaintes.
Nous sommes à revoir tout ça.
Non, je comprends, mais vous, est-ce que vous pensez que ça devrait être fait?
Nous sommes à revoir tout ça.
Est-ce que vous avez été suffisamment consulté sur ce frais-là, selon vous? Ça fait déjà 2 ans que ça dure, là?
Je suis à reviser tout ça.
Donc, vous n'avez pas d'opinion là-dessus?
J'en ai, oui, mais c'est pas aujourd'hui que...
Trouvez-vous que ça donne une bonne image de votre gouvernement, que ça fasse 2 ans que ça traîne?
Je pense que ça doit être réglé et ça va être réglé.
Minister, is there a chance that if the Senate amends C4, it won't pass until you guys come back next month?
Remember that the provisions of C4 are in effect because of a Ways and Means motion, and I'm not going to prejudge what the Senate does.
Do you think the Senate should have taken that off before Christmas break, that maybe would have allowed them to get this thing passed earlier?
I'll let the Senate speak to its own hours, its sitting hours. Yep. Okay,
merci. Monsieur McKinnon. Qu'est-ce que vous pensez du travail de votre collègue Léna Diab? Est-ce que vous pensez que c'est une bonne ministre, qu'elle maîtrise ses dossiers?
Écoutez, c'est une ministre. Le travail de ministre est très difficile. Elle est une bonne ministre. C'est difficile pour elle, c'est difficile pour n'importe quel ministre de l'environnement, de l'immigration, j'imagine. Ça, c'est un dossier que. Écoutez, ça occupe 80% de mon travail.
Parce que des organismes disent qu'elles ont du mal à la rejoindre.
Ça, c'est quelque chose où vous devez juste parler à Madame Diab. I obviously fully support her.
Sure. Do you think Léna Diab is a good minister? Some of her colleagues are saying that she doesn't really master her files and she doesn't provide clear answers.
Yeah, I don't think it's appropriate to litigate performances of my colleagues in the public sphere.
But do you agree with them?
I'm not going to comment on my colleagues to journalists or to Canadians broadly in terms of how I think they're performing. If I have questions, concerns, comments, feedback that I want to provide to those that I work alongside who sit around the cabinet table, I'll certainly do that in a private setting, but I'm not going to directly answer a question as to whether or not I think a colleague of mine is doing a good job.
But stakeholders, would you publicly say she's good?
I think that the minister is working incredibly hard on behalf of Canadians in the capacity that the Prime Minister has asked her to undertake. There are challenges, myriad challenges across government that all ministers are facing, and I don't think that it's a useful
But is she
useful
good?
endeavor to go over. Well, what does that mean? Is she good?
Is she competent? Does she answer questions clearly? Do you feel she masters her files? You know, some of her colleagues question her role at the cabinet table. Yeah.
Some of your colleagues, or perhaps yourself, have probably had those conversations with my colleagues, and I think it's unfortunate that they chose to use that avenue to do that. We could certainly sit down over coffee and have a long conversation about where there are challenges and opportunities across a variety of different files, but I think it's an unfair characterization of any minister to say, are they doing good work?
But stakeholders are saying that they have trouble getting in touch with her.
Those would be questions for those stakeholders.
So why won't you say that she's good publicly?
Well, it's just because I'm an educator, right? If I were to say to a student, or a student were to say to me, or someone asks a question, are you a good journalist?
I think.
Do you think would your colleagues say, are you a good journalist?
I think they would. Yes.
They might say, yeah, I think she's a great journalist. I'd say, okay, are there any areas you think she needs to improve?
No.
No? Oh my goodness, great.
Pretty damn
But I think you understand the premise of what I'm getting at here. So, you know, I'm not going to fall into the trap or the preface of the question, which is to say, is this minister good? Is this minister not good? I don't like the way that there has been a public conversation critiquing colleagues. I think stakeholders are completely...
Don't you think it's in the public's interest, though, to see how a minister is performing?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no. I'm not questioning that. Stakeholders are absolutely within their right to make commentary about the way that they think the government's performing.
MPs from opposition parties also?
Sure. There are many of my constituents, I'm sure, who would say we don't think Ben's good, and there would some who say we think Ben is good. I think it's more just the way in which that's being framed. Thank you
so much.
How are you today?
Well, thank
you. Can you update us on the 85,000 cases right now regarding Curran?
I don't have the exact number, but yes, as I've said repeatedly, there is over 7.7 million, first of all, Canadians are transitioned to the new system and are receiving payments on time. These are new applicants. Some of them are urgent, and when they're urgent, we're able to accelerate their cases, and they can get the money within 24 to 48 hours.
But you said you had a plan, and your department has a plan.
We do have a plan.
What is it?
And the plan is unfolding, as I said. It is actually more people dedicated to working through the backlog of new applicants and making sure that we are really accelerating those urgent cases and making sure that also we are able to support the transition to online applications. And I will say that these are largely paper applications, which means that there is a process where people are inputting the information on the paper application, finding sometimes, in some cases, missing information, really having to adjust and go back and find the information that might be missing. But ultimately, at the end of the day, everybody is going to get their OAS, and if there are urgent cases, we ask people to call Service Canada, or of course they can call my office.
It's just that a couple of days ago, a president of the union representing the IT sector said, I wouldn't be surprised if there were millions of Canadians impacted. And then a public servant just told me yesterday, well, it's going to be hundreds and hundreds of thousands of Canadians that are going to be impacted. What are you saying?
Well, I would say that's not accurate information. And of course, we could all have hypothetical speculations about what an impact of transitioning to a new software program might be. But in fact, what we estimate is it's going to save 6,000 hours of work a year by using an automated system to ensure that we can actually get people their benefits quickly. And I will also say that as people transition to being able to apply online for a variety of benefits, including OAS, CPP, NEI, it is a system that Canadians are expecting, because if you think about how you prefer to actually access benefits, do your banking, live your life, it's largely through online and modernized systems. That's what we're doing here. This is a 60-year-old system. If you can well imagine what a 60-year-old system looks like.
Yeah, but the bank did it. So, I mean, banks did that. Financial institution did that, and there was no hiccups. What I mean here is, you're saying there's the 85,000, the numbers is from late January. Is there a world in which that's the cap, and there's not going to be more, or you're saying, what are you saying?
What I'm saying is that we're actually seeing a decrease. We are seeing a decrease in the numbers of people that are waiting for the beginning of their OAS. Don't forget, these are not payments that people are relying on every month. These are the start of new claimants. And so we are starting to see a decrease in the number of new claimants waiting on a list to have their benefits start. We are, as I said, able to accelerate any cases that are requiring urgent access to those funds, and not everybody is in the same financial situation.
The 6.6 billion is...
Let me put it to you that it's irresponsible for Liberals not to go to an election with all these polls where you're up by 10 points. Don't Liberal supporters want that majority?
That's an interesting way of looking at it, but it's not for me to decide that. It's above my pay grade.
Okay, thanks.
Share a word for us, for Sticks in Canada, who are worried about the prospect of state-sponsored violence, especially as we saw another prominent Sikh activist get a duty to warn over the weekend, and this is still an issue that people are having to deal with.
Look, the safety and security of all Canadians is absolutely critical to our government. The safety and security of the Sikh community and members of diaspora communities overall is something that does concern us. Over the years, we've taken a number of very important steps, particularly around extortion. The Prime Minister was in British Columbia just last week, met with police leaders as well as members of the community along with our caucus members to talk about the number of measures we've taken, including investments of additional 20 RCMP officers on investigation, the availability of helicopters, of course, the suite of criminal justice bills that are now going through the House that will likely be law over the next several weeks. So we've taken some concrete steps, and we believe that the safety and security of the Sikh community is in good hands.
So speaking on safety and security, you were in the meeting yesterday with OpenAI.
Can I just take a follow-up from him, if you don't mind?
Sorry. Oh, no, Rachel, you go ahead.
Okay, because we had an arrangement.
We're very congenial here.
Okay.
You were in the meeting yesterday with OpenAI. We got an indication from Minister Solomon that he was disappointed by what they brought to the table. Is that a sentiment you share?
Look, I think the number of issues that are rising around Tumbler Ridge concern me. There are a range of questions that need to be answered, including by OpenAI. There are families right now that are still grieving, that are trying to put their kids and family members to rest. I've always maintained that the range of questions that need to be answered will be answered, and we will seek those answers. Yesterday's meeting was a critical first step with OpenAI. There's still a lot of unanswered questions, and there's certainly a sense of frustration, and frankly a sense that tech companies overall are not doing enough to address the issues around information that they hold.
Just briefly on that point, do you think then that the regulations that we're being told are coming on AI are best placed in an online harms bill, or should that be pulled out separately, legislatively speaking?
Again, I think just based on the conversation yesterday, what I would prefer to do is wait until the full depth of the investigation is complete in Tumbler Ridge and then comment further. Of course, Minister Miller is probably best positioned to answer some of the questions that you're posing now.
Yeah, and just and back on India, like we've heard from several Sikh activists over the last few years, especially as Canada has done more to normalize relations with India. Again, there's going to be a rally on the Hill later today. A lot of these people feel like they're being forgotten about by the government, especially going back to Maninder Singh, a prominent Sikh activist in BC. He just got another duty to warn on Sunday. Going to be speaking with him later today. What's your message to people like Mr. Singh, who still are currently facing threats to their lives from people who may be linked to the Indian government, like Mr. Najjar was?
Look, I think the concerns of Mr. Singh and others, I think, are based on their personal lived experience, which speaks to some of the challenges they face with transnational organized crime and other a range of other challenges they faced by foreign actors. What I can say is Canada is engaging with, for example, governments such as India. The Prime Minister will be going there shortly. We have parallelly have conversation around safety and security with the Indian government. Mr. Doval, who is essentially the National Security Advisor, was here 2 weeks ago. We had robust conversations. Our senior security personnel, including our National Security Advisor, Commissioner of the RCMP, as well as Director of CSIS, were in India several months ago. We will continue to have those conversations. Some of them are very difficult conversations, but we are very clear that any issues around safety and security will be at the level of the officials, and they will continue to stress the importance, and certainly they've shared some irritants that they have with Canada, and we will work towards collaboration on issues of transnational organized crime, issues around, for example, cyber crimes, issues around, for example, fentanyl and other precursors. So there is a dialogue that is ongoing that will ensure the safety and security of all Canadians.
Thanks, Minister.
Thank you.
And you're not on the trip, right?
No, I'm not.
Sorry, I was pretty sure
I
you
think
were.
we had a
Oh.
prearranged conversation.
Oh, yeah.
So that's
No, I appreciate that.
Easy start. Stop right now.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Would you do an interview? I'd love to talk about India.
Yeah. Context.
Yeah,
I'm happy to do it. Yeah, I'm happy to do it. Yeah.
People are getting stuff.
What's that?
People are getting, like, AI companies are getting stuff, so.
There's stuff going on. I mean, like for us, there's, we're optimistic about the opportunities, but we're pretty candid about the concerns that like that balance is, that's the key, right? So,
Also, one serious question. You said you're looking at all options on the table. Is that considering possibly banning ChatGPT in Canada?
I would say all options are on the
Including
table.
that one?
Let's just say all options are on the table right now. Let's see what they. Yeah, there's a lot of options, but we have a whole suite of it, and they will not just be me making these decisions. So I'm going to work with Sean and Gary and Mark.
And then when do you meet next?
Like I'm sliding into an
I know.
interview here. I got to go.
When's your next meeting? Do you know with them?
I don't know yet. I don't know, but
Are you guys coming the online arms bill?
I mean, it'll be part of it. Mark will, Minister Miller will have some stuff and all the suite of measures.
Conversation. So we'll see where we go from here.
What do you make of the way your fellow conservatives, ex-conservative colleagues have been treating you since you crossed the border?
No, honestly, I have no bad words to say about people on the other side of the aisle. Many of them are friends and deep friends, and a lot of them continue to text me. I hope that to remain friends, but certainly it wasn't an easy decision to do this, and it was something that I know is some that don't agree with it, and fortunately that's, I guess we're going to leave that.
What do you make of those who say that you sold out to go on this trip?
What do you expect to get accomplished, learn
The
from
Prime Minister has an aggressive agenda around the world, and he's asked me to help him in supporting that, so that's absolutely what I'm going to do, and I think we'll wait and see kind of what comes out of the trip.
And a question.
Pourquoi est-ce que vous avez décidé de traverser la Chambre? Pourquoi est-ce que vous êtes devenu libéral?
Les décisions est très difficile, mais le mondial est très important pour Canada maintenant, et les premiers ministères et a very an important moment in Canadian history, and I'm very excited to be part of his team.
Le référendum, il va peut-être attendre le départ de Donald Trump. Là, vous avez peut-être vu ça. Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon, chef du Parti québécois, a dit on va parler de souveraineté après le départ de Trump. Vous en pensez quoi de tout ça?
Je pense qu'il y a peu de gens à Québec et au Québec qui veulent entendre parler de référendum dans le contexte actuel où il faut défendre la souveraineté du Canada et la sécurité de nos emplois. Alors, c'est pas surprenant que M. Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon fasse le même constat. Mais le fédéralisme, c'est là pour nous aider à travailler ensemble. La meilleure façon de perdre contre le président américain, c'est se diviser. La division crée sa force. Alors, je crois qu'au Québec, comme partout au Canada, il faut s'allier, il faut s'unir devant la menace du président Trump.
Do we need to do something about the lack of French Canadians on the Canadian men's
Canada's national hockey team?
Well, because the Paralympics are starting in just over a week, I wanted to stop and just wish them all the best. There was 50 athletes named to the Canadian Paralympic team today. We're so excited for that to get kicked off next week. I think the opening ceremonies are March 6th back in Italy, and I'll be heading over to cheer on our team and to support Team Canada. 31 million Canadians tuned into the Olympics through the CBC GEM app. It was a great free platform that so many Canadians were able to enjoy the Olympics, and I hope 31 million Canadians will also tune in to the Paralympics as well in early March. We've also got the Arctic Winter Games happening at the same time, so March is really sports packed.
I'm curious, there's been a conversation happening about whether sports is political, kind of in the context of the American men's hockey team going to the State of the Union last night. I'm wondering if you saw the video of that locker room interaction with Trump, what you made of it, and if you had any thoughts on the whole conversation around whether sports is political.
Well, sports can be political, and certainly there's politics in sports and sports and politics. That's one of the reasons why I decided to put my name on a ballot, because I think sports diplomacy is a really encouraging, necessary, and useful tool to use. When I was over in Italy during the Olympics, I met with 15 different sport ministers from different countries to engage, and had really great conversations with sport ministers from the Ukraine, from Denmark, from Germany, from France, from the UK, from Italy, and those conversations were really useful. Like me, they attend cabinet and caucus meetings, and the conversations that they have to have. I won't comment on locker room conversations.
I got to ask you about hockey. Hockey in the States, I think they may have just gotten a big boost by having all the American hockey players come into the State of the Union. I mean, that's a rarity. Is it good for the game?
Well, every year after the Olympics, we've developed here in the House of Commons a tradition of welcoming our Olympians and Paralympians onto the floor of the House of Commons. It was actually my first time on the floor of the House of Commons was in 2012, so we'll be looking to do a Team Canada celebration again in May.
Connor Hellebuck getting the Congressional Medal of Peace. The Prime Minister going up the stairs said as a goalie, he respects his performance. What do you make of that?
My dad's a big Winnipeg Jets fan, so I congratulate Connor Hellebuck on his amazing performance. There's a lot of shots on goal, so standout performance. And when I watched the game on TV on Sunday, I was at Champs in Milton with a whole bunch of my neighbors. I thought Canada played a really great game. Sometimes the score doesn't reflect the performance. I agree with Sidney Crosby that the score didn't reflect the performance, but that's sports.
Juste une question en français
Oui.
Sur Léna Diab. Il y a certains de vos collègues qui estiment qu'elle ne maîtrise pas bien ses dossiers, qui remettent en question sa place autour du Conseil des ministres. On a parlé à plusieurs organismes communautaires qui ont du mal à la rejoindre. Elle est peu visible dans les médias. Est-ce que vous pensez que c'est une bonne ministre qui fait bien son travail?
I respect all of my colleagues, and we're all doing really important and challenging work. This work sometimes takes its toll a little bit, and it's important to support each other, whether you're working on a specific portfolio or not.
But do you think she's a good minister? Do you think she's a good minister?
Of course, I respect all of my colleagues, and we're working very hard together. And in particular, I respect and enjoy working with her in particular.
Do you
Thanks.
think there's a problem with the Ottawa fans, the Winnipeg fans, dealing with their biggest stars coming into the State of the Union address, the Tuchuks, Connor Hellebuck, and so on? Is that a friction point, or is it just the maturity of the game?
Like I said, we're really excited about welcoming Team Canada here to the House of Commons. Like a good athlete, I focus on the things that I can control and try to do that sports psychology one-on-one. And looking forward to the Paralympics, certainly kicking off next Friday, and seeing more Olympians and Paralympians succeed is not necessarily the only objective of Sport Canada, but we want to see all Canadians have access to sport, physical activity, and play. And all of our sports stars are heroes. And what we saw in Italy is just the start of, I think, Canada's Year of Sport in 2026.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.